name is Amanda Dombrowski. I double majored in history and politics, government, and law with a concentration in law and public policy. My history thesis was about the London Underground and how it created the modern metropolis London. And then my politics thesis was about the models of universal healthcare coverage and studies of real-world implementation.
My name is Olivia Baumgartner. I was an English creative writing major with a minor in media communications, and my English thesis was on the novel Rebecca, and mainly talking about the narrator and the unnamed main character of the story. And then my creative writing thesis was poetry, kind of based on observations of people. I'll go with that. Very classic rock influence. That was kind of the theme. It was kind of weird at first, I won't lie. It was definitely a transition because I had never taken a fully online class before, personally. But I was really glad that the professors were really trying to still keep it as personal as possible. And I was very happy to still have the support group of the other people in the class to kind of go off on, even if it's just complaining or something, being like, oh, this is hard, or praising each other and still being able to get that critique. So
I transitioned to it pretty okay, I think. I think because both my theses were already pretty independent, where class was you came together. For history, you came together and you did a presentation of your work when it was your week. And so we still just transitioned them to Zoom. It felt the same as it was in class. People were still participating just as much. And then for politics, it was largely independent in the spring semester. It was very much, here are your deadlines. And then we would have days where our little cohort would get together and then give feedback after we reviewed drafts. And we still did that. We just transitioned it to Zoom. And then both professors were still just as available as they would be for if we were in person. And that was something I was really thankful for, just because when it did get moved online, the adjustment to, you're not following the same routine. So it was a bit difficult in the sense of being very regimented took sort of a turn when you got home. Depending on what help I needed, depended on if it was going to be an email conversation or if it was going to be a Zoom conversation. If I just needed to check like due dates or requirements or just does this sound okay, I typically would email. But if it was something a bit more in depth, where with my politics thesis, I sort of changed stuff a bit last minute. And so I reached out to my professor and we just arranged to meet after like a class or something like that. Or if I was struggling, it was really easy. They were, like I said, pretty understanding.
Like, don't be afraid to send a follow-up email, because sometimes, I mean, I do it too. Like, sometimes you see it and you're like, okay, I'm going to respond to that after I do this task, and then you kind of forget. And people are human. So if it's something really that you really need an answer from, don't be afraid to send a follow-up email if in like 48 hours they don't respond, or sooner if it's even more urgent, really.
I would say keep a realistic to-do list. So my to-do list during the semester was a lot more comprehensive and in-depth than it was when I was at home. So if I normally could write like quite a bit in a night, but when I got home, it was the focus of it was different, and also reducing my amount of screen time, because before you're in class and I'm a paper note taker, so wasn't looking at this laptop all the time. But doing thesis from home, it was set realistic goals. Know that if you want to get something done by the end of the week, if it normally would take you like 2 days, give yourself maybe an extra day or two, just in case you're not feeling it. Where it's like, I know I had days where I would finish my classes on Zoom and then I was just like, I need a laptop break. Like, I don't want to be sitting at this laptop anymore. So I would get up, eat dinner, walk around, do anything but stare at this computer.
And I definitely found it a little bit harder to pay attention to like online classes, lectures, because I'm a compulsive multitasker, which I'm working on. But I found I do like friendship bracelets and stuff. So oftentimes, if it was just going to be the professor talking, I would find myself kind of doing a simple mindless pattern to keep my hands busy while I focused, and that was really helpful actually. Just as long as it's something that doesn't really take thought, because I mean, you've probably made a bracelet or something like that before. It's you get into the groove of it, and it's just kind of mechanical. Um, Also, try to have a designated space where you do your work. That's really helpful. Don't suggest trying to do work in bed or like laying down on a couch or anything, because that kind of confuses yourself with relaxing and working. So even if you have just like you sit at your kitchen table and you're upright and you have somewhere like an actual spot, um, it makes you feel a lot more like you're working.
I would say still try and make the most of it. It's not the most ideal to have stuff moved online, but I found that I was still able to connect with a lot of my friends, with a lot of my peers, despite it being virtual. Um, so if Arcadia is having events that are online and you can join them, whether it be like the weekly events that they have and like online bingo or whatever it is, if you're feeling a bit lonely, like, or just bored, do that. Like, I valued some of the student groups I was in would still have like weekly Zooms or like so often we would meet. And that was something that it broke up my week. So it wasn't as just, okay, I'm going to go to class and now I'm going to sit and do my thesis and now I'm going to go to class and now I'm going to go to bed. It was, I'm going to see other people. I'm going to interact with something fun and enjoyable.
Everyone is adjusting. So again, don't be too hard on yourself because everyone's going through similar things that you are.